Yes.
Hello everyone, welcome to National Poetry Month, and I'm going to start with a poem about National Poetry Month, which appears in my earlier book, Formal. The last time I was featured here, I was touring with this book, and now I'm touring with Historiopticon, so different costume, different tour, you know. And this poem refers to that. It's in the ballad format, and it's titled Ballad for National Poetry Month. In March, I start doing the same things as you, like prepping for public show at County Fair. The calendar listings can seem like a zoo, a long line of cages we pick through with care. Perhaps purchase clothing, a fresh public view, and then pollen season comes, our amaranth, the dripping, the scratchiness, all nothing new. What sadist picked April for Poetry Month? We sniffle through sonnets, eyes teary, we rue this season, congestion we barely can bear. Sestinas are agony, gag halfway through. Who cares about book sales? We want singular. Our villanelles are hell, Allegra will do. This season comes stealthily, like coelacanth, a seize to the throat rising out of the blue. What sadist picked April for Poetry Month? The post-nasal drippiness in my pantoum. That loud hacking cough back to disturb the air. That pregnant pause, brilliance, that isn't quite true. The Zyrtec has not kicked in. Pull up a chair. My tankers are tanking. Haiku na haichu. I'm fed up with film and pain of perianth. My blood pressure escalates. I want to sue. What sadist picked April for Poetry Month? So pack your inhaler and come if you dare. It's tragic, our noses are like tragicanth, but nothing stops poets. We are hard to scare. What sadist picked April for Poetry Month? From this longing poetry, teaching stories and letters of Rumi, is this poem, which I think is a nice introduction to what I'm going to be doing next. Two kinds of intelligence. There are two kinds of intelligence. One acquired as a child in school memorizes facts and concepts from books and from what the teacher says, collecting information from the traditional sciences as well as from the new sciences. With such intelligence you rise in the world. You get ranked ahead or behind others in regard to your competence in retaining information. You stroll with this intelligence in and out of fields of knowledge, getting always more marks on your preserving tablets. There is another kind of tablet, one already completed and preserved inside you. A spring overflowing its spring box, a freshness in the center of the chest. This other intelligence does not turn yellow or stagnate. It's fluid, and it doesn't move from outside to inside through the conduits of plumbing learning. This second knowing is a fountainhead from within you, moving out. And now we go to Historiopticon. I'm going to read you part of the back cover, which introduces the book, and then shift into the poems themselves. Here is the forgotten history of America and our future possibilities with time travel blended together in a poetry book of rare epic scope. Sweeping through 500 years of American and pre-American history with new poems written each year from 1994 to 2013, Historiopticon offers the truth of American history with 1 to 2 poems per decade from the 1500s to the 2010s. Historiopticon, featuring poems that travel through time and poems with people from the past set in the present and vice versa. And when time travel became real, covering YouTube, the internet, and the importances of loyalty and friendship over time. Treading common historical ground in uncommon ways, and including and examining the lesser-known histories of women, Native Americans, African Americans, gay men and lesbians, and others. Historiopticon is an unusual, compelling, and accessible read. Historiopticon is America in all its challenge, wonder, and diversity across time. And in time, we start with the year 1100 CE, around sunset, Cahokia. Sky afire, vermilion-streaked lilac. Cloaked in 20,000 small shells, his eyes span the panorama before him. Thatched huts inside the wood palisade 2 miles long, thousands more outside Cahokia's ceremonial center. Atop this grandest of grand plazas, 41 football fields in size, he eyes the portion where he'll play chunky in tomorrow's day, tossing spears exceeding his size toward a stone. He'll watch as thousands cheer. From heart to hip, his hand traverses shells, thinks upon several hundred sunrises of travel up and down the river, acquiring them. He wonders on what he's never seen, the vast river emptying to ever larger water, strangely garbed tribes to the far south. From the top of the pyramid atop the plaza, 100 feet higher than the thatched huts, he is solid enough, secure enough to dream. Peering into colored streaked sky, he can't imagine the spot of sky he eyes a few miles away someday will be the St. Louis Arch. Cahokia, center of the world, home to 15,000. Shells clatter as he outstretches arms, absorbs the setting sun, looks to the south and wonders what his world will be 150,000 sunsets from now. I can see you over there. There we go. 150,000 sunsets later brings us to 1513, although this poem kind of jumps through time because it is Ponce de Leon holding a press conference in the modern day. So Ponce de Leon holds a press conference. Every great enterprise, every marvelous journey starts with fact. Let us start there. I was born in 1460 in Cervas, Spain, page at the court of the King of Leon, soldier battling the Moors in Grenada, sailed with Columbus on his second voyage toward America. Established Caparra near San Juan in 1508, 1509 to 1511, governor of Puerto Rico. On Tuesday, March 3rd, 1513, I led 3 ships, Santa Maria de la Consolacion, Santiago, and San Cristobal, a nao, a caravalon, a brigantine, from the port of San Fernando through the Bahamas onward to the land where Columbus never landed. The route from Puerto Rico to the Bahamas was simple. Follow the trail of blood, of bodies, to see slave cargo dumped in water. This was the easy part. Land, gold, prestige, legacy. These 4 things carried us forward to La Florida, unsurpassed beauty, topped only by potential for wealth, for power. I liked power. I owned 300 native slaves in Puerto Rico. If they disobeyed me, if they attempted to defect from me, they would face my companion, Bercerio, snarling, snapping apart Aramac men, women, children. We did not land at what you call St. Augustine. Wind taking us south to what you call Melbourne Beach. Landed, declared it for the King and Queen of Spain, left. It was so long ago, I can't recall who stepped off the boat first. My slave, my wife, myself. I can state one fact with full authority. My slave and my wife were my property. My footsteps were the only ones that counted. Age 52 for my first Florida foray, age 61 when we returned to the West. February 1521, I gave it my all. 2 ships, 200 colonists, 50 horses, farm implements, livestock. We were here to stay. We were here. We created the first European settlement in this vast land on or near Sanibel Island. You've yet to find it. My name is Juan Ponce de Leon. My beard, once blonde, now gray, my eyes ocean blue. I am the authorized eyes and ears here for King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. I am a Spanish conquistador. I got things done. And one more thing. With 4 children sired by age 50, I did not need a fountain of youth. Fountain of Youth legacy actually started 15 years after Ponce de Leon died. It was carried forward in a book written and published in 1535 as an editorial error that continues to this very day. So, because there was no Fountain of Youth, and because he did not land at St. Augustine, and while we're on the matter of historical fact, there also was no Mass because there was no priest on board that first ship either. So, the St. Augustine Tourism Board does not want to hear from me for the 500th anniversary of Ponce de Leon, but we did debut this book in Florida, in West Palm Beach, on the East Coast first, then went over to the West Coast and did a debut in St. Petersburg. So we kind of followed across the state rather than going around it the way that they did back then. So these poems jump through time, and you're hearing poems that are in the first portion of the book called The Truth of American History. And what I'm going to be presenting to you is jumping through the centuries one by one. You heard the 1500s, so now we're going to go 1600s to the present day. Then you'll hear one or two where people from the past are set in the present, and then one from the one time travel became real section as well. So you'll get a little bit of everything. Of all the poems, I think this is the one that really authentically brings you back to the feeling of being in another time, in another world, because it is in another language. This is the authentic Narragansett language, as well as in English. In 1643, Roger Williams, the founder of Rhode Island, created the first Narragansett English dictionary called The Key into the Language of America. And through that, he had English phrases translated into Narragansett and spelled out phonetically. So from this, you could work out the phrases and come up with a poem. So we have this result I created called Narragansett Poem. And each line you're going to hear first in the Narragansett, then in the English, each line translating the other. And we'll go back and forth like that, and you'll get this. If the Narragansett were to write poetry of the time period, they didn't. They were doing trance and tribal things and not poetry in the Western tradition as we do it back then. This is probably what they would have had to say. Narragansett Poem. Awum Keen, who are you? Ninkutanimos, I will help you. Taketusawich, what is your name? Naweusanaki, I have no name. Numnu Winim, I go to gather. Widominash, grapes. Utahiniash, strawberries. Wamping Biniash, chestnuts. Namich, Kometa Sinin, stay, you must eat first. Matapsh Yotek, sit by the fire. Nawata Unamuta, let us mend the fire. Takiti Pokat, it is a cold night. Unetu Nita, my heart is gold. Nutuna Komin, I have had a good dream. Mamanit Kantas, be of good courage. Kupon Peish, I will stay for you. Tawich Kusahokian, why do you put me out? Mashaje Nikehikonima, I want nothing. Mata Nawanwame, I knew nothing. Mat Meshnau Ahia, I was innocent. Mashaj Nawatam, I understand not. Tawich Mat Kotron, why speak you not? Mat Nawatau Hetemina, we understand not each other. Nusau Uasanane, I am weary with speaking. Bishitasin Bishito Mamakan, it is a storm, a great flood. Nunapumin Altashe Hitit, there is not room for so many. Osome Tatasha, it is too late. Niko Shakau Wamen, we shall be drowned. Awanik Parak, who comes there? Nitap Mashaje, friend, not so. Mishime Ipana Watam, I shall never believe it. Mat Kunikansh, I will never leave you. Kupo Kitibin, I will divide house with you. New Amsterdam, 1629, a Dutch sonnet. They have bought the land of Manhattan from the wild men, quote unquote. Letter by Isaac de Racieres, 1628, first commissary of New Amsterdam. One summer day in 1626, a trunk opened by Peter Minuet, 60 guilders worth of things, no tricks, hoes, axes, scissors, knives, needles, all glint. The blankets, beads, and buttons seal the deal. Manhattan for $2,000, a steal. From here will rise a city, glass and light, now overhunted wilderness in night. Within 3 years, the windmill rises high, inside a star-shaped fort of tight-packed earth. 2 arms lay fallen off by 55. The 30 wooden houses line the strand. The stone house with thatched roof held all the pelts. 200 settlers stay and take a stand. All of these poems start with a historical fact, and the historical fact in this one is the declaration of the woman, which will come as part of the dialogue within this poem. Monday, wash day, May 1644. Early morning every Monday, iron kettles brimmed with scalding water, ladled into barrels, weeks' worth of clothing angling to be cleaned. Always a new shocker from that one, daring to say what many thought but didn't dare mention. The 3 Ks, I says, keep your house, keep your silence, keep your life. Combining forces made for faster progress, made the passing hours less burdensome, like this morning, pigs squealing gate side, wood ash smell wafting off the chimney, my stirring the rod, her inserting the clothes, inserting her opinion into the proceedings. I have heard, she declared, we're now in the United Colonies of New England. Mistaking my consternation at the steam's heat as consternation at her, no, it's true, 4 colonies united, New Haven, Plymouth, Massachusetts Bay, Connecticut. John Winthrop is president. Happened last May, but you know how long it takes for some news to travel. Saying nothing, stirring clothing, I await her weekly brash comment to savor all week. She doesn't disappoint. Men again, making laws and declarations and partnerships for naught. We are and forever will be united, she points, to yard after yard of women washing clothes. The mystery of Salem solved. Wind whistled through their eaves, witch, spiraled through their rafters, quietly entered town. Leaded glass windows leered in jealousy. Houses must be severe, dark, walnut clapboard. How dare Rebecca Nurse reside in colonial red? Plant colorful flowers under her windows. Walkways must be drab, severe. Frozen tundra or mud terrain, no deviation. The buildings in West Danvers conspired against the buildings in East Danvers, and the severe buildings sneered at the colored heathens downwind, and the snow and cold howled, witch, which entered the ears and mouths of villagers, and wooden floorboards screamed, drive! And children contorted themselves accordingly, subtly instructed by the architectures of sorrow. Can you, citizen, look at Hoxie House and not see evil? As jails filled, as accusations accelerated, as neighbor pointed at neighbor, how could Judge Jonathan Corwin not believe in witches, returning nightly down his walkway, looking up to Raven Sky nightly, to the 2 black peaked hats, topping off his Salem home. And the buildings pointed, witch! And their darkness spread its reach, casting malevolent marks, causing drownings, causing stonings, tearing the fragile fabric of community, pitting righteousness against reason. Then and now. Now, we all know that the American Revolution started with the Battle of Lexington and Concord, though actually that isn't quite true either. It almost started a few months earlier, February 26, 1775, in Salem, Massachusetts. And this is the account of one person, our fictional eyewitness to the proceedings going on, kindling. They will write kindling. They will write poems about men with 3-syllable last names, Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton, but never about us, often hungry, often tired, and here in Salem, almost always cold. I look up tonight, see the Lord's glory in the sky and these stars, endless on tonight's icy talons, then breathe into cold so severe my throat constricts in pain, starts to gag. I enter, latch our door. I will wear layer upon layer of clothing, surround myself in the skin of that bear that's supposed to be on the floor, and even with that, I assure you, I still will be shivering. Wind will come, through the floorboards, through the walls, through the roof, through the fireplace, where we will huddle through the evening, continually feeding kindling. I have a dark feeling tonight, a dark feeling. What is it with women in Salem? Something in the air that possesses them to bring about havoc? First we survived those girls, then we survived the trials. We survived the humiliation, sought forgiveness for our sins. Now Sarah Tarrant opens her mouth today and nearly, look, I don't view women as property. I see them as the water that turns the wheel, the energy that pulls all our pieces together, and more often than not, makes everything cohere and work. But today, her leaning out her window facing that lobster coat, shouting he was sent on a fool's errand before all of his fellow soldiers, I might have stepped out of my line and aimed my musket at her too. As if that weren't enough, loud enough for all to hear, "Fire if you have courage, but I doubt if you have it," then continues arguing. We all see him turning the red of his coat, musket still loaded, still aimed at her. In a brigade passing through, our militia hidden in bushes, armed, ready. Thank the Lord for Colonel Leslie. We all felt the spark in their verbal volley, their folly. I'm sorry. I'm not ready for the darkness approaching our country. Oh, it's coming, soon enough. It will tear through us like quill through parchment, tear apart all of us, burn us all, like the fire will shiver over this evening, stoked, crackling, burning hot and high, fueled with kindling. The CrossDressers of Antietam. Women occasionally disguise themselves as men in order to serve in the American Civil War. Reasons range from a sense of duty and honor to country to simply raising funds to send home to family. The Battle of Antietam was the single bloodiest day in the Civil War, and 21st century research indicates 8 women dressed as men were part of it, 2 of whom were Mary Galloway and Sarah Emma Edmonds, a.k.a. Franklin Thompson. So this poem is from the voice of one of those women, and this is what she has to say. Everything becomes private. A bevy of boys is naked in front of you in the creek, in a rare moment between battles. You wish you could join them, days of scorcher in these GD woolens, but you can't be seen naked. They'll know. Every moment becomes a challenge, a near miss, a sigh of relief. Wipe the sweat from your forehead. This dirty, bloody mess is well nigh 4 years now, and you have a concern. The young'uns joined in 1861 are now starting to shave, and if this goes on 2-3 more years, they're going to wonder about you. Some may already wonder about you. Do they whisper over the campfire at night? Is there an ominous hush behind the wail of the lone harmonica? Tying your breast down is a daily pain, your private nightmare, but you're still alive. It seems so little to give. It's really not a bother when you consider all the young boys who have died, all the flies you've seen feeding on their corpses, and the fields of body parts, the blood, the dirt, the roses, the mud, the field, the violets, the violence, the weary resolve, your fade and dissolve into grit and resolve. You look at their faces and wonder, am I the only one? Is that a boy? Or am I looking into a looking glass into my own future. Remind yourself you have a name. It may not be your given name, whatever they're calling you these days, a world away from dresses and dolls. Someone may say, you don't look a day older than when you came in, but your eyes remain the pains into your pain. You may never know Antietam numbers. 3,654 killed, 1,771 captured and missing, 18,292 wounded, all in one day. September 17th, 1862, American bloodbath on a steamy afternoon. Now, it's 1865. The throne, the mangled, the war-worn, and you. Women's work is never done. Don't meet their eyes. Reload your gun. Conceiving Talent Party. When you get to do a TV show, you get to do multiple takes, so that's an appropriate segue into this poem, which is another true story about the 14-year-old boy who invented television. I love this story. Conceiving television at age 14 atop a plow in Rigby, Idaho. Steam rises off a field of potato. Philo looks high and low at parallel lines, row by row, but this alone is not the scene he's pondering at age 14. No, he rubs some dirt, the soil moist, pats sweat off his lengthy forehead. Not much choice today, this scene in Idaho at age 14, a time of swimming holes and having fun, this humid summer of 21. Yet here he is with horse and plow, his mind getting all fanciful again. He dreams of pictures that fly through the air. But how? The stack of magazines, an attic loft, the summer boredom scene seems setting in, and row by row by row it goes. Throughout the afternoon, boy knows of spinning discs and of machines trying to break images into electricity. But that takes speed they simply do not have. He taps his forehead. Think. A drink of lemonade would be quite keen right now, the blade of plow at rest atop the soil. Like many teens with magazines, he dreams with quiet passion. Magnets and electrons, light into electric, back to light. This might work with a cathode ray. Yes, any teen who spends time with electric magazines in attic lofts in Idaho in 1921 would know about a cathode ray, but here today in steamy heat, a wisp of hair has dropped across his brow. A sweep of hand from forehead top to back, edge of right thumb at rest atop his ear. It's clear that speed inside an image is the key. You see, the image is a block. You have to break it down to microscopic size. He yawns, his teen eyes close. He sighs, his eyes reopen, sighs. How do you break the picture block to manageable size? He eyes the plowing of the afternoon, potato field, Idaho. I just don't know. He shakes his head, then looks down at the soil, the hard work, the keen work, the neat work he has done. It'll come. The sun still lingers in the sky, and when it sets, all fireflies and stars and no more toil. I do good work. A smile. Look at those lines of soil. A perfect line atop a perfect line, row by row by row. I know. To be or not to be. Starry, starry night. Grab the cable at your left. Pull yourself to railing's edge. Pause a moment to absorb the view. Well, they are going to pay. They are going to pay in a big way. No quiet ending in a quiet room for you. You planned your plan and sadly carried through. Now the world's again askew. Gay leaders wring their hands and cry, what can we do? Well-worn cycles resume anew, while I wonder, why GW? There's a message in your choice. perhaps a thought you couldn't voice, perhaps a telecast that troubled you, a Valentine's message from a GW calling you the greatest threat to marriage he had met. And the thing we must forget, the thing we never, ever state, is how 1,000 points of light interrelate, how each small bulb casts its glow of hate, and how collectively they overwhelm. So call to task those at the helm. It's not just what kids see in school that lead their charge, but what they hear and see in the world at large that makes them ask to be or not to be, that makes us all live through more tragedy. Yes, there are evil women and men who spew their hated gaze time and again. They often call themselves Republican, Muslim, Mormon, sometimes Christian. But to counterbalance all of them, to bring their hatred to an end, we need each and every kinder soul like you. I wish you'd understood this before you dove toward New York's promise, its blinding skylight lights, its river view. In memory of Tyler Clementi, Rutgers University student, and all the other GLBTQI children and young adults who took their lives during 2010, before and afterward. I have 3 more poems for you. We are now in the Historiopticon section, where people from the past come into the present. Thomas Jefferson apologizes to all. You have asked me if all meant all. I think this an amusing question, merely a trifle, hardly a concept to even consider. I do understand the question, though, and your reason for asking now, but first I have another matter of graver concern that I beg your forgiveness to consider. I wish to proffer my sincerest apology to all the people of this marvelous experiment, this United States of America. My skills, a loose term to be sure, were forcibly employed at the request of Mr. Adams, Mr. Franklin. I complied with reservation. They kept me in an upper room, kept me from returning to my lovely wife, kept me in this humid tempest known as Philadelphia through June into July to write and rewrite this Declaration of Independence, this breaking from the motherland, this written encapsulation of the need to be free. While you can agree I had the Magna Carta, I am in full confidence that many of you sympathize with my plight. It is not as if there was a stack of documents titled Declarations of Independence that I could use what you call boilerplate. No. I had to sit in a stifling room with a quill, a stack of parchment, and decipher in words what freedom means. To write a document, not only to define this marvelous experiment, but to give it shape in succeeding years as it grew, evolved. And once I had written said document, I had to submit it to the Congress. I had to endure roiling arguments, deletions, revisions, emendations, live with their decisions. I never wanted this task. I only wanted to get home to my wife at Monticello. So I wish to proffer my sincerest apology to all the people. My heart is heavy on learning what has been done, knowledge I was previously deprived of by dying. Had I known 600,000 would die in what you now call the Civil War, what some call the late great unpleasantness, a war started over states' rights, evolved into our Declaration of Independence from slavery, I believe I would have fought much harder to keep retained the lines I wrote to eliminate that darkening scourge from our plentiful skies, the lines the Continental Congress removed. Perhaps we would be 2 countries. Perhaps the evil would have ended on its own. Perhaps in the 1960s versus the 1860s. But those 600,000 would still be alive. I feel some tearing of the heart, some heaviness of responsibility, but remind you, I saw the evil within us. I tried to end this. In that I failed. In that I ask your most gracious forgiveness. Yes, I owned slaves, but I ordered them freed within my lifetime. We must be compelled to treat all others with fairness. I changed. Which brings me back to your first question. In my time, women and slaves were property. I have asked myself on several occasions since why I wrote all men and not simply all. My thoughts were constantly of my wife, but my world of operation, the world of leaders, was then a world of men. It is the highest honor to find one of my handwritten parchments protected for all at your National Archives, words meant to guide, yet words allowing for change. Gay marriage. Marriage equality. Call it what you want. Now that is a revolutionary thought. That is the only answer I will offer for now. Abraham Lincoln and Joshua Speed at Borders Books and Music, 2011. In the winter of 1840 to 41, 31-year-old Abraham Lincoln was trying to save his political career while helping to solve debt issues in the state of Illinois. Mix into this a cold winter snap and the pending departure of Joshua Speed to marry and move to Kentucky or Washington, and Lincoln plunged into depression and suicidal thoughts. Joshua Speed is quoted as talking about hiding knives from Lincoln and how terrible a time it was for both of them. In early January 1841, Lincoln disappeared for several weeks, presumably under a doctor's private care, and was not seen publicly again until January 20th, 1841, where he appeared, according to one source, quote-unquote, emaciated and gray. There is no evidence that Abraham Lincoln and Joshua Speed traveled together on a time machine to the 21st century during that time, and there is no evidence that they didn't travel on a time machine during that time. That tall drink of water and his handsome companion engrossed themselves in individual explorations. Lincoln's jaw drops at the face-out book, two men but side by side, holding hands. He flips through page upon page of intimate photos, history's hidden heritage. Sharing a small bed with Joshua, they'd never discussed their spooning in the silence of night in their second-floor office in Springfield, Illinois. Turning a corner of bookcases his height, he is as startled to find two young men quickly unclasping their hands as they are to see him in top hat and suit. Joshua, ever pragmatic, is deciphering the kiosk, the thing called a keyboard, the rotating ball, all black smoothness. All through his life, feeling destined for greatness, he's taken a shine to Abe, for now, circumstance dictating the closeness. Kind man, best friend, depressed soul, Lincoln in this age needs someone to idolize. Speed provides, always with caution. If this gets out, our futures will be over when they barely begun. Why else, in the 21st century, do we have most of Lincoln's letters to Speed, almost none of Speed's replies? Speed searches by subject, Joshua Speed. Overwhelming to imagine Lincoln and Speed absorbing all their America had become, but Lincoln's lawyerly mind fixes on one thought. Speed and I can be a couple. Smiling broadly from ear to ear, Lincoln hastens to find his friend. His friend, in turn, thrilled to see his name inspired 100 books or so, decides to amuse himself further. Speed pulls up the screen requesting subject. Speed types in subject, Abraham Lincoln. With Speed comes the reply, 15,468. His already high voice pitched higher with excitement, Lincoln makes an impassioned plea and scholarly case for him and Speed to stay in New Jersey despite the depressing surroundings of the closing of Borders, the fixtures for sale, chairs piled in the cafe. Speed simply replies, "We have to go back." But, Abraham, we have to go back, and points to the screen. Abe's hopeful joy changes to crushed and crestfallen, changes again at his first glance at the screen. Lincoln eyes Speed in confusion, almost horror, then simply stutters, 15,468. How in God's name can this be possible? In the Time Machine, one more time. This is my concluding poem. We can take you back before the 3 knife attacks, before the infection in your left eye, before the window shattered your 2 index fingers. None of it will have happened. You will lose all the memories of the caustic, unkind, and cruel that have littered your life like trash strewn on an endless highway. Those experiences, those burdens, will never have happened. The Historiopticon hums to life, slowly begins to turn. You will also lose all the good, all the people you've met, the life you've created, anyone you currently love. Where do you wish to go? The Historiopticon spins faster, and the white light appears, blinding. The optometrists search for your optic nerve, that blinding intensity of light and white. You cannot see, and the Historiopticon vibrates heavily, like a wooden coaster rocketing down an unseen track. You have to pick a date. You have to pick a year. We are running out of time. Where do you wish to go? I fold my hands atop my nose, close my eyes to get my bearings, think one last time upon my journeys. Home, I say, just bring me home. Whoosh. Thank you.
Messineo, thank you, Florence Lenhart.
And if you're interested in either, formal sells for $20, Historiopticon sells for $30. It's cheaper here than if you buy it online, so see if you're interested. Thank you.
You're welcome.